Then I'm going to talk a little bit about MRU entries, which are registry specific. They're going to contain information on most recently used, hence MRU, which are going to be found in, there are some in the system registry hive, but primarily we're going to talk about the ones related to the user. There are some file type specific MRU entries, which can be related to a particular like extension or file format and things like that. They'll contain information about the program used to open the file, as well as the date and time it was opened, the original path. Again, kind of giving you some information about what applications may have been run on a system, when they were run, and so on and so forth. These are a whole bunch of locations, right? Don't really worry about them too much for right now. This is mostly for reference, but I just wanted to kind of point out some of the common locations. Then one of the things I want to point out, has anyone ever heard of shellbag MRU entries? Sorry, I knocked my tooth. So I actually did quite a bit of research in this because we had a case come up where an agent had activity that he said, like, I see these keywords in these entries, but I don't know how to parse them. So I looked into it and spent a lot of time kind of researching it and how they're laid out and stuff like that. They're really actually kind of a cool registry artifact that not a lot of people know about. They are user-specific registry entries that they contain information on folder settings, right? So you know when you go to like, you're in a folder and you go to Tools, Folder Options, and you say, I want my things to be look like icons, or I want that to be in a list, and I want it to be sorted by name, and so on and so forth, right? Like those are all folder settings that are saved in the system somewhere, and they happen to be saved in bag MRU entries. But they also contain information such as the date and times that were associated with those applications, and they're only created when you access that folder, right? And you'll see this in a second, kind of when I kind of give a demonstration. But they can be really useful for timeline activity because they can associate the visitation to a folder, to something by a user, right? So they can't say that like, oh, I never went to this folder. Well, yes, you did because we have this entry in your registry, right? There's two different types. There's a shellbag MRU and the shell no roam. Don't really worry about the difference for right now because they're basically the same thing. But they basically show navigation activity. So if we look at, and here's where they are. Here are the paths to those. Kind of don't really worry about it too much. The one thing that I want to point out is that they have a tiered structure, which I'll show you in the next example. But they kind of have like tiered, like hierarchical view of the folders. But they work with folders only. So it's not files specifically, it's only folders, or zip files, because they have kind of their own structure. So if you look at here, if we were to look at this kind of walking through this value, you see how we have kind of those folders there, we have the 2, 0, 0, 11, right? And you might say, like, what is that? That doesn't mean anything to me, right? Why do we have those files there? Well, what it's really saying is if you were to actually look at the keys associated with those folders, right? So on the root of bag MRU, there's all of these folders there, but there's also individual key entries for 2, 0, 1, 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth, right? And the number 2, in this case, happens to correlate to my computer, right? If I were to visit my computer from my desktop or whatever else. The number 0 under the 2 there is associated with C, the C drive. And then the other number 0 is program files. The number 11 is NK6. And you can see here how it basically shows kind of access, like this is me navigating like my computer, C:, program files, NK6, and accessing that particular folder. And then for kind of these subfolders that aren't devices or kind of the shortcut names, you have actual folder attributes, right? So the creation date, the modification date, the access date that's associated with that folder. So you can use this to kind of correlate, as well as the creation date of the key itself, to correlate user activity, right? This is when they visited that folder. Here are the attributes associated with that folder at the time. So it's kind of a neat way to kind of show somebody has visited something. And we'll talk about this a little bit when we get into doing registry analysis, which is the next segment that we'll do. And you'll see it's actually kind of cool when you can look through stuff.